Also, just today, I played in the 4-5 mixed golden ticket event that was here in Boise. PPA comes out and announces that Proton. Welcome to Between the Rallies, a podcast exploring the stories, people, gear, and moments that live just beneath the surface of pickleball. The conversations, connections, and experiences that shape the community behind the game. Because sometimes what happens between the rallies matters more than the score. Hey everybody, welcome back to Between the Rallies. This is episode 11 and I'm your host Kyle. It's been a while since we did a solo podcast because I've just had a bunch of guests. It's been amazing. I had, Doug from Bread and Butter, Matt from Chorus, and then I had David from 11624. Huge shout out to all those guys. 3 phenomenal brands, 3 phenomenal guests. Had a blast doing that, but here I am back doing it solo. So let's get started. Off the mounts. So I've been doing a bunch of those guest podcasts. I've been super busy. I've been trying some new content. I'm sure you guys have seen kind of some skits and just some other stuff. Just trying to change it up a little bit, have fun with it. If you've watched it, love to hear your thoughts. If you thought it was cool, or if I should continue doing some of that stuff. I'm thinking about maybe doing some more educational type stuff. Drop a comment if you think I should continue doing some of that stuff, or even some ideas that you have that you'd like to see me pursue. I'm always open to trying some new things. Also, just today, I played in the 4-5 mixed golden ticket event that was here in Boise. There was 5 teams in my division. It was pretty sweet, though. None of the teams were local Boise teams that we played. It's always terrible when you pay your $100 to go play in a tournament and you just play your buddies. So it was fun. Played a bunch of different teams, people I'd never met before. All great teams, great games. Me and my partner Molly went 5-1 and actually won the golden ticket. So we will be going to San Diego here in October, November, which is sweet. It falls at the same time as my birthday, so super looking forward to that. I played the Nox Judit 16. We'll get into that in the bag, but that currently is the paddle that I've been playing with. Also, I just got my girlfriend moved in to my house. We've been busy doing that. Super excited, though, to be back doing the podcast solo. I'll probably do some guests again here in the future, but I think for, the next couple weeks, we're just going to run solo. It gets a little, tiresome trying to get everybody scheduled and get all that stuff done and set to a time schedule. I'm a busy single dad, so it's much easier just to come sit down here and knock out a podcast by myself than, scheduling tons of guests. But I do love having guests, so I do have plans for some more guests very soon. But until then, you just got to deal with me. All right, let's get into In the Bag. So as I said, today we played the 4-5 mixed golden ticket event. My main paddle was the Judit Castillo signature from Nox. Nox is like the #1 padel company in Europe. They are now making pickleball paddles. This is their second release of paddles. The first release didn't look like a paddle that I would like. Talking to JMA, he played a big part in producing these new X foams. I was interested to see them. I had them send me the 16mm Judit and also the 16mm JMA. Both extremely solid paddles. The Judit, it plays very similar to like a boomstick, but it actually has better control, which I was kind of surprised. Huge sweet spot. I can hit absolute missiles with it. I've only got a little bit of weight on it, actually less weight than I usually put on my paddles. And I don't feel like I'm sacrificing any reset ability, top end power, plenty of pop at the net for those counters. Another thing I noticed, the packaging was very premium. I was pretty impressed with how nice the packaging was. The wrap over the grip is so nice and branded Nox that, because normally you just get that cheap plastic covering, but they have like a really nice black branded cover. And I will say the Judit had the nicest stock grip. I like tacky grips. As far as tacky goes, it was probably the nicest stock grip I'd ever touched on a paddle. Still threw my U-drip and freaky tack on it, but I could have played it stock, no problem. So very solid paddle. Definitely worth checking out. It is, I think it's in the mid $200. I do have a code, Dink Smash. I'm very excited to see where they go. But now that like JMA is involved with the paddles, I think the next series of paddles, I think they're only going to get better. I'm very excited for them. And then next up, Vulcan. So Vulcan went into new ownership. They took a long time to come out with paddles. They spent a lot of money on R&D, got some investors. They enlisted some paddle reviewers, collaborators type thing to actually like R&D their paddles to make sure they released a good paddle. So they released 3 paddles, the Dark Matter, Nyx paddle here, and the wide body, I think the White Noise. Very solid paddles. They're pretty eye-catching too. The blue looks really good with the chrome. They also put spots on the side that show you like where to put your weights. If you want to weight your paddle up. It's a power paddle. It's stiff, but not like so stiff where I didn't like it. Again, the impact feel was, I would say, medium stiffness, little hollowy. The sweet spot wasn't super small. It was kind of what you could expect off an elongated paddle. I wouldn't say it was oversized, but it definitely wasn't small. My only complaint, I am not a fan of, on the top here, they wrote the specs. Thickness, 16 millimeter, weight, 8 ounces, plus or minus 2 ounces. Kind of like it's like the nutrition facts on the back of your food, and they like stamp that right on the top of the paddle. Interesting design choice, not a super fan of that, but otherwise I think it looks great and it plays good. And I think Vulcan did a good job releasing some good paddles. I'm looking forward to getting some more time on these. These are only UPA approved, not USAP, but great paddles. And since this section's in the bag, I have to show you my new bag. So Vulcan also released a new bag. Don't know if it's going to be my daily driver yet, but it's definitely one that I am a fan of. So the material is a thick, plasticky. So when I worked in offshore oil, I actually had a bag that was very similar to material to this. It was very durable. So I think that is why they went that way. They did utilize magnets here on the water bottle holder, similar to like forward. So that's a nice touch there. The back is very cushiony. There's like extra cushion right down the spine area. A carabiner for a fence hook. The bottom has a ventilated shoe pouch. Inside, I fit 5 paddles pretty easily, a laptop, my U-Drippin accessories kit, and with the shoes in the bottom. And then you still have all this. You can attach all your stuff out here, your Labubu's and whatever you have. Easy attachment points. So good job, Vulcan, on their bag. And that's what I got for in the bag. Let's move into around the net. So the big topic that everybody's talking about right now, PPA comes out and announces that Proton, after this tournament they just had in Utah, Proton's banned. It's gone. They are not in good standing with the PPA. Essentially, what it comes down to, it sounds like, is their debts are not paid, so they are no longer allowed to be played in the pro level, and they are going to look at it for the amateur level. So likely, even amateur play for PPA tournaments, you're not going to be playing with a Proton. I don't want to speak too much on this. I am going to reach out to both Jason Aspis and Charles and Brant, because I have a pretty good relationship with those guys. Get a little more of the story, because right now, the only thing we've seen is the email that Connor Pardo sent out. And again, there's always 2 sides to the story, not siding with either of them. Proton has had their fair share of controversy. A lot of drama. Everybody's talking about it. Zane, I'm sure all the podcasts are going to talk about it this week. And there was actually a clip being shared of Charles saying that, can't wait to see the podcast talk about it. So he knows that they're going to be the talk of the town. Let me know what you guys think. Proton came out, when they came out with their Series 1, it was so, I say it was unique. I do think Diadem had a very similar surface, the Spin RP, but they came out with their nanotech, it was like a rubber. It reminded me of like a ping pong rubber for like a ping pong paddle. Honestly, it was pretty revolutionary. I've always at least thought like they're trying to push the envelope. As far as the money goes, we heard that they filed for bankruptcy once and then they didn't go bankrupt. Now we have this and they're saying they owe money. Zane saying that pros aren't being paid. I'll see what comments I can get from those guys, but that's the news for around the net there. Also, I got to commentate 4 hours of PPA. So Jason Aspis reached out to me and asked if I'd like to do the PPA Firefight. I was like, sure. I've never commentated on any sport really, but I just thought it was a good opportunity to, get a feel, see what it was like. So for 4 hours, I basically sat in my living room on a computer with headphones on. I had a producer. If you haven't watched the Firefight, it was similar to like NFL Red Zone. So there was, multiple screens coming up. I was watching games, trying to commentate on the fly, going from game to game. It gave me a whole new respect, though, for those guys in the booth. That job is not easy. After I finished 4 hours of it, I needed a nap. I was exhausted. So, Adam Stone, Dom at the APP, you guys, like, I have a new respect for that. And it's definitely not easy to like know enough about every player. I would have to take notes on every player to have enough interesting stuff to talk about other than just like what's going on. Ton of fun. Thanks to Jason for reaching out and letting me do that. It was an experience that I'll cherish. Maybe I'll get a chance to do it again. Who knows? That's all I have for Around the Net. Let's get into mail call. So I posted on Instagram for some questions for episode 11, and I got a ton of questions. So I cut it down to just 4 questions. So the first question was, what was my greatest accomplishment in the Navy? Not pickleball related, but I'm like, this is pretty good, and it's relevant to current events, and it's kind of funny. So in January 2012, I was on deployment, and I was on the VBSS team, stands for Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure, and we were specifically on deployment doing counter-piracy ops. We were off the Horn of Africa, and we came in contact with an Iranian fishing vessel. And basically, our chief engineer speaks a language, it was Urdu, speaks a language that the pirates that were holding these Iranians hostage didn't speak. Basically, they tell them, they're like, hey, we need help. We're held hostage. So we got the call that night, like, hey, we're doing a real boarding tomorrow. That next morning, we were all young. I mean, I was probably, what was this, 2012, so 20 years old. Super young. We're taking Jack 3D pre-workout. We're pumped. We go over there and essentially wrestling these pirates to the ground, zip tying them up, and rescue these fishermen that had been held hostage for, months. That was probably my greatest accomplishment. I got a Navy Achievement Medal for it. It was super cool. I'll post some photos in the pod so you can see, but that was probably my greatest accomplishment in the Navy. Honestly, if I could have done that the whole time I was in the Navy, I probably would have stayed in for 20 years instead of getting out after 6. All right, question number 2. Top 3 skills for going from 3.5 to 4.0. It's a great question. I think the number one skill when you're a 3.5, you spend a lot of time in the transition zone. Even 4.0, so getting comfortable in that transition zone and being able to reset balls from the transition zone, I feel like is the number one skill to advance your rating. If you can dig balls out of the transition zone and you can move into the transition zone from the baseline, reset balls into the kitchen, and also learn how to go from the kitchen and back up into that transition zone when you have to and be able to work your way back up, I would say that's the number one skill. Number 2, I would just say is increasing consistency in returns. That's huge. When you watch 3.5 play, dudes that hit huge serves at any rating, you see a lot of missed returns. So I feel like being able to hit a consistent return hugely gives you an advantage. So I'd say that's one of the best skills. And then patience. Not always just trying to speed the ball up, waiting for that, hit that one extra dink to get them to make the mistake. That way you have the put away. I'd say those 3 skills will bring you from a 3.5 to 4.0 and beyond. I think once you're past a 4.0, everything just comes down to consistency. The more consistent you are in those skills, the faster your rating will go up. Yeah, I'd say those are the 3 main skills. All right, I get this question a lot. Solo pod. So is doing the pod solo my ultimate goal, or am I looking for a co-host? I have had several people reach out to me about being a co-host. And again, love all you guys. I'm having a ton of fun being on the podcast by myself. I get to pick the guests I want. I get to talk about what I want. And again, I'm still jaded off having a co-host. If a co-host comes along and I feel like in my head, I'm like, we could build something together that's going to be great. Of course, I would take a co-host. It is much easier to have a conversation with somebody and talk about pickleball than it is for me to just talk to you guys in my basement, just staring at my camera, talking to myself like a crazy man. So I would enjoy a co-host, but it's got to be the right guy or girl. I wouldn't mind having a female co-host. It just has to fit. Maybe one of these guests that I have, I would do a podcast with that person permanently. And honestly, I feel like if it's going to happen, that's probably the way it's going to happen, is one of these guests, we're just going to click so well that it's going to make sense. I wouldn't say that doing the podcast solo is my ultimate goal, but I am content doing it solo right now. I'm growing. So I don't see any reason for me to just change the format yet. All right, so last question. Have I tried the Legacy Pro paddles? I haven't. I tried the old ones. The old ones were a big deal back in the day when we had the grit gate with carbon and everything getting kind of becoming on the radar from when we were getting those real rough peel ply faces. I hadn't seen anything since then. So this is the first I'm hearing that they have new paddles that have come out. So I'll reach out to them and see if I can get one. And that kind of wraps up episode 11. If you guys enjoy the podcast, please subscribe, give me a share. If you have any ideas for a new guest or anything, go ahead and drop those in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts of, some guests I could have. The guests I'm looking for, I know I did paddle brands because that's kind of easy. I have a lot of contacts, obviously, with paddle brands. But I would love to have some more guests that are doing some stuff in the community, whether it be, addiction recovery programs. I had pickleball in prison. That was great. If you know anybody that's, got using pickleball for some good in the community in a big way, please put that in the comments. I would love to have some more guests that are utilizing pickleball for the greater good, so to say. With that, thank you guys again, and I will catch you guys between the rallies.